For the Palais Festival, we're always looking for a program that's totally different, breaking all of the narrative rules. And certainly Carnivàle looks and feels like no other series on television. Creator Dan Knauf has created a very surreal, hypnotic drama set in Dust Bowl America. Amid all of the economic and social unrest, Carnivàle also has a transcendental quality. It imagines a struggle between the forces of good and evil. As you watch the show, you try to locate yourself in the narrative, and there are many references that come to mind. You think of Fellini, you think of Lynch, whom we just seen, of John Steinbeck. Even Diane Arbus at LACMA has a flavor of the series, but Carnivàle is totally unique. I'm very pleased to have the cast and crew here to talk to us, and I think we'll understand why Carnivàle is certainly one of the spookiest and most talked about new series of the year. So let's meet the cast and crew of Carnivàle. Howard Klein is executive producer of Carnivàle and a founding member of 3 Arts Entertainment, a leading management and production company. He has served as executive producer on numerous programs, including King of the Hill, Greetings from Tucson, and comedy specials with Richard Lewis. Howard is currently executive producing the American version of the popular BBC comedy The Office. Please welcome Howard Klein. Now let's meet the actors who make up this strange universe. Adrienne Barbeau plays the snake charmer Ruthie. Her career in film, television, and theater spans more than 40 years. She received a Tony nomination for her creation of Rizzo in the original Broadway production of Grease, which led to her role of B. Arthur's daughter in the hit series Maude, which we saluted a few years ago. Adrienne has starred in numerous movies, including The Fog, Escape from New York, and Swamp Thing. Please welcome Adrienne Barbeau. Clancy Brown plays the charismatic preacher, Brother Justin Crowe. His film debut as Viking in Bad Boys, starring Sean Penn, brought him to the attention of Hollywood, and he has been then featured in such popular movies as The Shawshank Redemption, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, and Highlander. His television credits include the series Earth 2 and the film Normal, opposite Jessica Lange. Please welcome Clancy Brown. Tim DeKay plays Samson's right-hand man, Clayton Jones. He has starred in several independent features, including Welcome to the Neighborhood and Big Eden. Tim plays a recurring role of Reverend Keyes on Everwood, and has guest starred on Friends, Malcolm in the Middle, and Seinfeld, where he played Bizarro Jerry. Please welcome Tim DeKay. Clea Duvall plays the tarot card reader Sophie. She starred in the psychological thriller Identity, the independent comedy But I'm a Cheerleader, and the award-winning drama 21 Grams. On television, Clea's credits include The Defenders with Beau Bridges, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the HBO production of The Laramie Project. Please welcome Clea Duvall. Amy Madigan plays Iris, the protective sister of Brother Justin. She has received many awards for her work, including a Golden Globe for the television movie Roe vs. Wade, a Cable Ace Award for Robert Altman's A Laundromat, and an Oscar nomination for a performance opposite Gene Hackman in Twice in a Lifetime. In 2000, she was acclaimed for her role as patroness Peggy Guggenheim in her husband's Ed Harris's film, Pollock. Please welcome Amy Madigan. Nick Stahl stars as Ben Hawkins, the intense loner with mysterious powers. He starred in an array of films, including Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, In the Bedroom, and the Sundance feature Bookies. Nick's first professional role was at the age of 10 in the television movie Stranger at My Door with Robert Urich. Please welcome Nick Stahl. Los Angeles native Daniel Knauf is the creator and co-executive producer of Carnivàle. In 1994, HBO produced the screenplay Cannon's Way, a Western starring Ahmad Asante as a blind gunfighter. Dan subsequently developed a number of feature projects at various studios, most of which were shelved as too damn weird. Please welcome creator to introduce tonight's screening, creator Dan Knauf. Carolyn Strauss, president of HBO Entertainment. Dan, you've looked for magic and myth in Depression America. You don't see that too often on television, even in popular culture. Why did you revisit that era to set your story?
Well, I mean, as a writer, what you look for is sort of like a little patch of untilled soil, you know, and go where no man has gone before, so to speak. And it kind of evolved in steps. You know, I knew I wanted to tell a big story, and I knew I wanted to create a myth, and the Depression just seemed like such a pivotal time in American history where almost, you know, anything could have happened. And there were so many awful things happening back then that it seems like, you know, almost a reasonable proposition that the devil was here. So, you know, we went with the 30s. Some might say the devil was there. But.
Could you talk about the genesis of the series? I know, when did you work with Howard? How did you begin to work together?
Howard was my guardian angel. He is my guardian angel. He and I have a mutual friend, Scott Wynant, who got the script to Howard, and Howard looked at it and said, "This looks."
Said you're crazy.
Well, he was at gunpoint when I showed it to him the first time. Anyway, he brought it to HBO, and they responded, and that was basically it.
How was your initial reaction?
You don't every day get an idea like that pitched to you from across the room, and I thought, wow, I just won the lottery here. And
yeah, which lottery?
but it's, as you could see, I mean, we're all so proud of being involved with it. I think anytime when you do what I do, when you hear an idea, which I hear all the time, different ideas, certain times, certain things ring out, and you just go, oh my God, think of the possibilities. And I think that was just, it was magic. I heard this idea, and Dan had written this script a while ago. And we just started working on it, working on the idea, and just bringing out all these great nuances, and just said, this could be fantastic. So we called HBO and said, I have a great idea. It doesn't take place in New York, but I think you'll like it anyway. And they were very receptive right away.
Carolyn, we were here on Saturday night with David Simon, and he talked about his discussions with you, and he said that you wanted something that was not television. Could you tell us what your reactions when you saw Carnivàle and how it was not TV, regular television?
As we spun around the dial, it definitely wasn't something that we saw out there, or at least in my perusals of the dial. I mean, I think it dealt with a lot of themes that were interesting to us, certainly in a setting that was something that we hadn't seen before. I think Dan had a very comprehensive vision and a really unique voice. And you know, I think that the time that he picked was very unique and certainly truly American. Yet it seemed to resonate strongly with current times. So. And he managed to attract a really tremendous cast and an incredibly talented crew to support all that he did with it. So all the pieces seemed to fall into place to make us say, yeah, let's ride this horse.
Well, you mentioned the cast. I'd like to ask each of the cast members to talk about your initial reaction when you saw the character and what the audition process was like.
Well, actually, when I went in for the audition, I had only seen the sides, and no one had said to me that it took place in the 1930s. I was contemporary, but I knew she was written. There was a scene in the pilot which we didn't make the final cut for Ruthie, and the dialogue was so specific that the character was on the page already, and it was one of those instances where you realize as an actor, there's no paraphrasing here. There's not even making a contraction, because there was a sound to her that was in the words. And I certainly didn't think, I walked in and I thought, oh, there's no way they're not going to hire me, you know. You asked if I like snakes. Yeah, sure, okay. But I never saw the entire script until after the offer came in, and I was driving. I picked it up from the casting director and started reading while I was driving, and just pulled over to the side of the road and finished under a tree and was just blown away. It was my kind of stuff, and very excited to be doing it.
And Nick, about Ben Hawkins, you obviously have a mysterious character. How did you first see the character when you auditioned?
We had just read the first episode. Well, some of us, I did. So that's all the actors. We were getting the scripts as we went along. We didn't know what each week would bring. Where the character would go, and which was a really interesting challenge. It kept it really fresh. The character was he had this very interesting sort of dual nature. He was sort of had this real internal struggle going on that was really intense, and he was a very quiet character, and he could sort of, I thought it was just a good challenge, sort of this person who conveys a lot without sort of saying a great deal, and to me that sort of he was very stoic, sort of embodied this period in an interesting way. So I jumped at it.
And speaking of internal struggles, so certainly Justin has that as well. Clancy, could you talk about the audition and what you saw in that character?
Oh, well, I was just glad it wasn't a prison guard. And it was one of those scripts where you thought either this guy's really got a lot going on, or this is going to be a total disaster. And immediately, I loved it, because I tend to think somebody's brilliant. And then I met Dan. Went in to read for the role, and Dan was on his way out, and I'd never seen him before in my life, and he had a lot longer hair then, had some kind of weird Grateful Dead t-shirt on. He comes out and he goes, "Holy shit, you're Clancy Brown. Hey, you reading for Brother Justin? That's great. Okay, look, I got to drop my kid off at the basketball game, and yeah, it'd be great. I'm sure you'll do fine and everything." I said, "Oh, great. How are you? I'm Dan. Nice to meet you, Dan, fanboy." And he said, "No, what? No. I wrote this thing. And I wish I could be there for your audition, but you'll do great. Don't worry about it. It's really great to have you here. Okay, bye." And he popped on this helmet and copped on his motorcycle and scooted off. And so at that moment, I said, "I've got to do this." That's the most memorable audition story I have from this.
And Tim, about Jonesy?
Dan and I had worked on a pilot before this, which was this pilot about this mod hip gal who's a 60s private investigator, and I played her love/hate interest. And when we realized the life of that was going to go somewhere else, maybe, Dan said, hey, I got this other project for you. So I just assumed that it was another kind of half-hour comedy / hip, somebody else's hip, cool, funny thing. So when I started reading Carnivàle, I had that in mind. And the first couple of pages, I'm missing the joke or something. And it didn't take long for me to realize, this is amazing. This guy, I said he's a Renaissance writer. He's just completely different genres.
Amy, about Iris?
I auditioned for the part which any woman between the age of 38 and 68 auditioned for. It was a wide array of people, and a lot of my friends were in the waiting room, which made it a little strange, but also wonderful. Iris was not in the original pilot, and she was brought in later, And so I didn't really have a very full map to go from, and I didn't have much dialogue. In the audition, I kind of talked to everybody, and then I gazed at the person who reads across from you and kind of said, "Yes, Brother Justin." You know, that was really about it. And I was hoping that I'd have more to do, but I just concur with everybody else. The script is just fantastic, and the writing level is just really out there. And Iris, basically, because we found out that she's a little twisted, I feel that she can just do anything and it's okay. So you know, I liked kissing my brother, and call me crazy, you know. So I look forward to other physical parts of the character. I don't have a problem, so.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys said yes, which I'm so thankful for, because we've really had a ball.
And Clea, your character has gone through a lot of changes. Did you see those possibilities when you first read the script?
No, I mean, I had never done television before regularly. I was so enjoying and inspired by what HBO was doing, and I spoke to my manager and my agents, and I said, you know, I really want to do something in television, you know, along the line of what HBO has been doing, and they handed me the script for Carnivàle, and I thought that, you know, nothing could be more perfect. And I read it, and I loved it, and after 4 very painful auditions, everything finally worked out. And because of that, because of being in film, you kind of read a script, and that's what's happening. And this, you know, the story doesn't really go beyond that, you know, 90 or 100 pages. And so I didn't really think beyond it. And then as the scripts kept coming in and everything kept changing, and I kept learning more things about all these people, it just got more and more exciting. And I love it. I'm having the time of my life doing the show, and I'm glad that, thank you, Carolyn, for letting us speak more.
I think as actors, at least I feel that we're part of this misfit troupe anyway, as actors, that we are making a living in this imaginary circumstance. So there's also this great emotional connection to playing somebody who's also a vagabond or somebody who has a nomadic life and goes from town to town or from project to project. It's great because there's that, I don't know, it feels like when you're in a carny, you also are venturing into the unknown as an actor does as well. So it's exciting to play that as well.
Yes, I did vast research.
Right.
Years. Years and years of research. I'll tell you, I really didn't know much more when I wrote it than I did from just personal experience. And then, you know, you go and you look at this, you look at some guy with he's got a face that looks like it's been, you know, across the country and back, and it probably has. And he's got jailhouse tattoos, and he's running the Rocco plane, and you see a story there. And I sort of thought of these people as this some kind of subculture traveling together, and it fascinated me for a long time. And I guess the only thing I did was, from the standpoint of like really researching, was get a list of like, you know, carny slang, you know, at first. I mean, I've done considerable research since then. We have a full-time consultant that used to be a carny. But, you know, there was like a lot of voices that came from, you know, my father and, you know, older people that, you know, you hear them in conversations at a coffee shop, and there's a certain rhythm and cadence and color to the conversation that you just don't find in your contemporaries, and just sort of work from there. So a lot of it was imagined, you know, and most of the time I got it right, you know. Maybe I was a carny in a past life. I don't know.
For the actors, did you go back and look at the Depression photographs, or Clancy, did you listen to Father Coughlin? Because there is obviously some type of parallel.
Yeah, I listened to all sorts of great speakers at the time, and there's plenty of them to listen to because that was one of the main ways of communication. You know, there were schools of oration around the country, and there was a confluence of these people in what they call Chautauqua. That was a real popular destination during the summer, and they would have elocutionists and things like that. And I just kind of collected as many recordings as I could, and then looked at as many books as I could with pictures, and read as much Steinbeck as I could. And, you know, and then just waited for the scripts to roll out because you couldn't use any of that. You know? Yeah, I fooled myself into thinking I was making a difference, but then you get the scripts and you see, you know, you're kissing your sister and drinking lemonade. Like, nowhere in Steinbeck is there.
There's lemonade.
There's lemonade.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
Any other research looking at photographs or?
I read World War I for Dummies because we did have a lot of flashback to the trenches, and I wanted to know what all that meant. And as one can only do in Los Angeles, I did find a woman who dances with snakes for a living. Mesmera. Eternally grateful to.
I think a lot of it was defined by, you know, early on when we did our pilot with Rodrigo. And Rodrigo, you know, really what he wanted to do was shoot it a lot like the way it would have been shot then. Big master shots, you know, using the whole frame, which you don't see on TV too often. Usually it's close-up intensive on TV and a lot of cutting. And as far as the palette went, you know, again, we wanted to keep to that look of those old black and white photographs, almost a sepia. But that was really, the die was cast in the pilot and carried through, you know, the subsequent episodes.
I think we really wanted to also to emphasize the Dust Bowl. You know, we went out.
More dust.
More dust. I guess like dirt. I wanted dirty, and you know, make them dirtier, and make the clothes dirtier, and but to really emphasize the flatness and the you know, to look for the vistas where we could to find, even though we shot it here, to find the vistas where we could emphasize the flatness, the dustiness, and to do that we needed to keep it wide and flat, and so you know, it would help to keep the shot still and wide, and so I think Rodrigo and Tammy Riker, who was the DP, really helped to do that, and I think we got great assist from the production designer and the costumer and all
We've tried really hard to make everything seem the realism of the show, from the day players, their faces, just so when the camera's panning, you go, that person looks like they were around in the 30s. From the wardrobe to props. Yeah. We have people right now, wardrobe scouring the country, going to garage sales around in that area to try to find the most authentic and things that people would look at and go, that looks amazing. And so we really try to keep to that level.
The director has a tremendous influence on the look of the show, whoever does the pilot. And Rodrigo, in this case, did the pilot. And then after that, you know, it's the director can bring you know, his skills to the party in working with the actors, but I think mainly it's on the shoulders of the producers to make sure that you have that consistency from episode to episode. So TV is much more a producer's medium than say the film world, where it's more of a director's medium. But as far as the look of the show, if you're the director on the pilot, chances are that, you know, the rest of the episodes will follow. We had another episode where we were doing a lot of stuff where we were moving in and out of trailers. And what Scott developed was a way to seamlessly we've got those trailers sitting in on a stage. and you would never know it. I mean, we had a way to seamlessly take people from our exteriors, which were shot way out in the hills, right into a trailer. And so I think there's those moments where you've got the directors being able to find a visual style as you move along, but the majority of it is sort of set in the pilot.
Yeah, but they were all articulate, and they were all intelligent, and they all knew exactly what they were doing.
You know, I think religion and organized religion can be a good thing, but it can be a very, terrible thing too. And I know in Dante's Inferno, I mean, the lowest ring of hell was sort of reserved for false prophets. And generally, if somebody's a devil, I think they're going to come, in a cassock. And so there's that.
Thank you. Good night.
Actually, they come in an Armani suit. I just wrote an episode, since I got on the stage. No, it really, I mean, it depends on the writer. We've got a staff, and everybody works at their own pace, and I like to allow people a little bit of elbow room. Some people are very quick, 4 or 5 days. Some people take a couple of weeks, but generally a couple of weeks is the outside for a first draft. Then you'll go through, multiple drafts afterwards. There'll be changes due to just, some things aren't working. There'll be changes due to production issues. But just for a first draft, I'd say anywhere between, 5 days to 2 weeks, depending on the writer, depending on whether I decide to stay at a motel or not. Up in Santa Clarita, maybe 3 days. So. I was talking to Stuart, who heads up the museum here, a little bit before we all got out here. And I was telling him what an exciting time it is to be in television right now. This medium has really sort of been in its infancy, and that's really due to the fact that you have to break every 10 or 15 minutes to sell toilet paper. And in that kind of environment, you're never going to have an opportunity to develop tone, to do all the things that grown-up art does. And HBO it's almost like being in the film business back in the 30s when they were just discovering the power of the medium. And I think that yeah, but I think that it's really very cool to be able to do storytelling that's like a novel. You really couldn't even do that in film, and we're able to do that now. And so the kind of storytelling we're doing is very different. There's a lot of setup, and if you pick up an 800 or 900 page novel, and you get to page 50, and you're going, wait a second, there hasn't been a car chase yet. You've obviously never read a 400 or 500 page novel, but by the time you get into it, all that setup pays off with a depth to the payoffs, and where you're really identifying with the characters and really in their world and knowing what's at stake. And so far, at least in film, it's been hard to actually do that kind of storytelling. I know that there's a lot of trepidation among the viewers, because the last thing you want to do is get to page 450 in a 900-page novel and have some clown in an expensive suit with capped teeth pull it out of your hand and throw it out the car window. Thank God we're not dealing with people like that. HBO is committed to telling the story to the bitter end, and I'm, thrilled.
No caps yet.
On behalf of the Paley Festival and the museum, we thank you for being here. Certainly, Carnivàle looks like nothing else, and we look forward to that second season in January. Thank you for coming.